And many of you are aware of this, but right on our main city webpage, dsm.city, we have a link to Projects Map. And again, that Projects Map link is basically a GIS-based portal where if you click on that map, you can get a map and see if there's a city project in your area. It's also on the engineering page there, so I just want to highlight that. But you'll get a map that kind of looks like this. You can type in your address in the upper left, and it'll zoom to an area. And then if you click on one of the icons that you see, it'll give you information about what is going on in the area. And you can see there's I clicked on that one, and there's a pop-up about the Closest Creek stormwater improvements phases 2A and 2B. It talks about what the project is a little bit. It also gives, most importantly, a direct number to the city project engineer, so they can have a direct contact if they have further questions. And you can even expand it even more. The box and every one of these has a box, and that table right there has the information that is actually linked and coordinated with the city's capital improvement program booklet that our finance department produces, so folks can see how this is funded. To say the city's made great progress on improving our bridges would be an understatement. The city has made progress that I am incredibly proud of, and this is kind of a list of just some of the recent bridge projects that we've completed. The city's, since in the past 10 years has invested about $62 million toward its bridges, and just to kind of give you kind of a perspective. We have 52 bridges in our city that we're responsible for, and that's just bridges. That does not include there's 24 culverts that are longer than 20 feet, and so we're required every 2 years to inspect all those bridges. And when we do inspections, we look at the existing conditions. We make decisions on repairs. See if there's any restrictions or postings that are needed, and any loading restrictions, and then plan from there. In the past, the bridge sector has used a term called structurally deficient bridges. Now, again, this term is kind of been used in the past, but it's not. Structurally deficient does not mean that a bridge is not safe. It does mean that some of the elements are in poor condition and need work. And so it's just kind of a benchmark term that's used. And back in 2013, the city had what was classified as 14 structurally deficient bridges. And as of today, we have 5, and which includes the 5 that are out there. 2 are starting construction actually this past week, 2nd Avenue in the Southwest 9th Street Bridge over Middle Creek. The other 3, Southwest 9th Street over Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway, Walnut Street over the Des Moines River, and Fleur Drive over the Raccoon Bridge are all already programmed in our city's capital improvement program. And again, I want to reiterate, structurally deficient does not mean they're unsafe. I'm proud that we actually don't have any load-posted bridges, and so the city has made incredible progress on our bridges. So.
Southwest 9th over MLK, that's the viaduct?
Yep.
What is the structural deficiency, and what's the work that's going to be done there?
So that one will need a rehabilitation. I actually don't have the specifics on what it is. I don't know, Dave. Do you know what?
It's really the.
I'll let Dave Camp, our chief design engineer, come up.
It's really the end piers. There's a lot of cracking going on there, where the beams sit on the structures, and so we have pictures of it. It's just cracking. The actual beams themselves are not in bad condition. They could use some painting, but overall, it's just a concrete repairs at the piers.
So it's a relatively minor repair?
It is. It actually made it onto the DOT's local bridge program last year. So did Southwest Ninth over Middle South, but we could only pick one. So we chose Southwest Ninth over Middle South. It will be on the list again this year, so we're going to kind of wait and reintroduce it for more state
So
funding.
the state will pay for it. What's the funding of that project, or what's the estimated cost? I know
The estimated cost is 1.1 million, but that also includes Southwest 8th. We're going to proactively do both of them at the same time. So Southwest 9th itself would be 5 to 800,000. And so the bridge program from the state is a maximum of 1 million, but it also has switched to 100% no match for the city. So it was worth us waiting for that. It's not in, like Steve said, imminent need of repair. It needs attention, but not instantly.
Sure.
So
In terms of how long would it be till those bridges need replacement?
I'd say,
Decades.
once we repair them,
25 years.
25, 50 years.
Yeah.
I mean, the best money value is to repair them, especially those with such large steel girders that, I mean, they're in good shape. So,
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Dave. We've got about 44 million programmed over the next 5 years towards our bridges. As I mentioned, the Second Avenue bridges, which a lot of folks have obviously seen the attention and our thanks to our communications department about that project starting up. You know, that work has started last week and this week, because it carries so much traffic, because there's a lot of businesses right there. It's a vital connection for our neighborhoods. We are going to do that in staged construction, so we're going to keep one lane of traffic open at each time, and so the traffic will be shifted over to the eastern lanes while the work is done on the western side. And so again, there the bridge that that was classified as structurally deficient was the Second Avenue Bridge over Birdland Drive. But since we're doing that bridge, we're replacing that bridge, now is the time we feel to rehabilitate the Second Avenue Bridge over the Des Moines River. And so we're doing both those at the same time. Again, that's a 2-year project. Southwest 9th over Middle Creek, that work started last week as well. Due to the, that road carries about 4,000 vehicles a day, and due to the proximity to the North Warren fire station there, we are going to do that one in stage construction as well, using a temporary traffic signal to alternate traffic. So that one, again, a smaller bridge, we hope to have that one done in the spring of '23. So those are the two ones that you'll see underway this year. And then we're also working toward on the design of the Walnut Street Bridge over Des Moines River. We would anticipate that one starts late. We could maybe bid probably late this year, early next year. So it'd be a 2023. Almost the same timeline as these other two river bridges. It would be the same process as Grand and Locust, and so it's a really multi-year project. So. Fluor Drive reconstruction, phase 1 of Fluor Drive, which included the northbound lanes between Watrous Avenue and George Flight Parkway, was completed in the fall of 2020. And that one was the one that had also the water main replacement. Phase 2, we feel is well ahead of schedule. If you're out there, this picture was actually just taken. This is the roadway work is substantially completed. We've got the utilities, the storm sewer in, and the road reconstruction complete. And so today, if you go out there, you'll notice that the outside lane is closed so that we can get the new sidewalk in along that stretch between Watrous and George Flagg. So this project is on pace, well on pace to be done by the fall. So,
is there a reason that you're using a different brick style for the retaining walls than what you originally used last year and the previous? So there's a different, must be a different contractor, but the bricks are noticeably, the walls that we're putting up now are noticeably different.
Is it
smaller?
Is it on all of them, or is it the one by the apartment complex, or?
No, the apartment complex has the same retaining wall put in as the other side. That was done last year, but now it looks like we have a new contractor, and they're using the smaller bricks to put up the wall. I didn't know if there's a reason that we changed that, because now it's not going to look uniform as you go up and down there.
The only thing I think of, and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, would be there are different sizes of walls, and so I think we've been using those, the larger blocks for the larger walls, but.
It also is working with the property owners and getting the style and look that they wanted. We're also matching into some folks' yards that they already had a certain style. Some of those bigger wall blocks are good they're a gravity wall, they can hold back a lot more without any tiebacks, but it's an aesthetic issue that some of the residents wanted that look, and that's the only look we could get with the smaller blocks.
Okay.
So yeah, again, phase 2 is about 80% complete, and again, is on target to be completed by this fall. So phase 3 would be the next phase. It's currently under construction. That work we anticipate would start next spring of 23, and be a 2-year project, so 23-24. So.
Is this on track? I seem to recall when we started this that it would be a 4 to 5 year process, and it looks like we're pushing 6 years now. Am I misremembering that it would be a 4 to 5 year for all 3 phases, or did we lose a little time somewhere along?
Yeah, I mean, it could have been a 5-year, but that could have been the case, the 5-year. I apologize, I don't remember, but I mean, that could have been the case that we thought it was 5 years, so.
Well, because, yeah, I mean, I thought there would be a little bit of overlap, like, is phase 3, I mean, why isn't phase 3 starting this construction season?
It's really just trying to coordinate the lane closures. We honestly didn't think phase 2 would be there's a risk that phase 2 wouldn't have been this far along, and then we would have had traffic shifted all the way over. And then also it's we didn't want to have major intersections. We've had occurrences where we've had major intersections like Walker's completely closed, and so we didn't want to have too many of those closed as well. So some of it's just trying to stack up the timing and not knowing, how these would progress. Probably in hindsight, if we would have known that, I don't know that we would have, but if this one would have been had a schedule, it would have been nice probably to start this 3rd phase this year. But
Yeah, it's 6 years. And then so.
and then also,
Did we talk about from McKinley to Arby Post Road ever, or is that even in the plans at all?
we don't have money budgeted for that one at this time.
Not even?
Yeah. Not within the 5-year program. So, yeah.
Probably the state DOT is going to step up and do that part, right?
Well, they haven't yet, so I wouldn't assume that they would do that. I think it's our responsibility.
Another corridor that's seeing a lot of construction, to say the least, Ingersoll Avenue, and this is a photo of a project that was just recently completed last year, and this phase is done. 42nd to Polk Boulevard. This road was reconstructed, added the buffered bike lanes, and then also if you see the parked cars there are parking insets along there, and those parking insets are made with permeable pavers to promote groundwater infiltration. So.
When will this part?
Yep.
When's this going to be done?
Yep. Well, there are actually phases that are programmed in the future all the way down to 42nd eventually. So easily in the next 5 years there'll be continued construction unless for the streetscape portion. So right now what's happened with Ingersoll, here's kind of a summary of what's kind of in the immediate future. Phase 1 and phases 2 were the north side of Ingersoll Avenue between Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway and 28th Street. Those are substantially complete with the exception of some plantings and landscaping that needs to be done on the north side there. Phase 3 is the one that started this past week here, and that one is the south side of the road between Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway and 28th Street, and that one again anticipated a two-year phase. It started last week, and we're hoping it'll be complete by in the summer of '23. That one will require again it's shifting the traffic over, trying to maintain one lane of traffic in each direction. As we presented in the public meetings that we've had, that one will have a couple months, 1 month in the summer, depending on how the contractor schedule lays out, and then 1 month in the fall, where there only will be westbound traffic. And the challenge is with the streetscape, we're shifting everything over, and there just isn't the room to do the remaining road reconstruction to keep one lane open.
I'd say I'd hate to have a business on that street. Sorry, but it would be miserable what we've done to that. I mean, those businesses. I mean, that one business right there on the corner I drove by last night, I mean, it's completely tore up in front of there. I just, that's, I get it. I just,
Say what?
this one is going from
Oh, did
2 years. Phase 3 is 2 years.
Well, so the first two phases we broke up, so we only did from Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway to 24th, then 24th to 28th, and a lot of that was because there was water main work along there. So,
Sewer separation is not, right?
and then the other thing that's going on is, as Councilmember Bozen mentioned, there's sewer separation between 35th and 41st Street work. That's part of our consent decree. So that's been going along the north side. They've been putting in large sewer starting at 35th, working their way west, and right now they've gotten all the way past 38th, and then this next year they'll hopefully get past 41st and then head up into the neighborhoods. And
How about from 28th to 35th, is there sewer separation still needs to happen in there?
not sewer separation, but actually between 28th Street and 31st Street would be the next phase of the Ingersoll Avenue streetscape.
Oh, I know about that.
Yep. And so that phase is scheduled to start in '23 and be a 2-year project. So,
Do we ever consider having crews work around the clock, like at night, being able to?
to speed up.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I know the cost would be potentially a little bit more, but, I mean,
so,
what you're doing to some of these businesses is, I mean, you're asking people not to go down there because it's going to be such a mess. And it has been.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we actually, this year, so for this phase 3, there is an incentive in the contract if the contractor can get done, months and months in advance. And I don't remember the exact dates, but it was like I think a 6-month advance, I think. Okay, yep. And so to try and incentivize the contractor to work longer hours and accelerate the project. Again, we don't do that on, pardon?
November of this year for the street work?
Yeah.
And this contract also goes into next year, but it includes 28th Street coming in. So that's why it's also going into next year.
Right.
There's more side street work that's involved with this project as well.
Sorry, can you clarify that they're going to do work on 28th Street? Not on Ingersoll, but on the, okay.
Yeah, we added some road reconstruction work on 28th Street due to its proximity, just to do that as part of the contract too. So, but the incentive is for them to get the road work done on Ingersoll faster to try and entice them to, because of the impacts. And again, this work is all, if you remember, the Avenues had hired a consultant and prepared a conceptual plan to do this work.
That they didn't run by the businesses that Joe's talking about.
Yeah, and I can't speak to that, yeah.
I
Yeah.
can.
Can I just ask as far as design only, because I see it as I drive down Ingersoll, is the curbs and these designs look pretty on paper, but maintenance of them? I can see the cement already chipping and stuff, so how do we avoid, I mean, within a design concept, I just think that, how do we maintain this stuff once we get it done? I mean, you get it done, make it look nice, but they're already getting beat up.
So does the property owners maintain it in front of it?
Not curbs, but in this case, there is a Schmid,
Schmid to do
and so the
the
district
planters are
is
already
doing
in
all
cement
the,
breaking off.
that's the reason that all the streetscape type work is, to be honest, is allowed because
The
of
Schmidt pays for it.
The Smith pays for any busted up concrete or anything, curbs that, you know,
They don't-
that are.
not the curbs, but they would, like, if there's
Those
anything
planters
with the
already
planter
breaking up.
areas, replantings, cleaning out the planters, or if benches get, or bike racks, and those things get damaged, yeah.
Okay. Let me just make one point, and I don't know, you ought to go out and take a look at it, but from about 41st, 42nd down to about 36th, the eastbound lane up against the curb, you've got severe damage and sagging all over the place. You're going to get a lot of damage on cars going down there. They're going to be very, very surprised.
The existing eastbound, the southern lane, is pretty.
And totally broken out up
Yeah.
against the curb. I mean,
Yeah.
this far out.
Yeah. And the challenge we have in some of that area is we do have more sewer work. We have to do the crossings. And so that's the challenge of, that there is more work to be done. We haven't touched that area yet, but the issue is we have the traffic shifted over there on an existing poor condition roadway. And then we're doing
Let's
sewer work
switch
on the
from
north
poor
side.
to horrible.
Pardon?
Poor to horrible.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
Yep. Yep.
Is that like, is it like potholes that could be like paved over quickly, or is it? like-
No, it's so bad that it's alligator rutted.
It's like the structure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Can I ask about the distance between, I'm looking at the bike lane here, the distance between like the pavement markings? Because there's pretty long stretches where like, if you don't really know that the red means bike lane, then you're just kind of walking in it.
Yeah, on those, I think, I apologize, I don't remember the distance offhand of how often we put the bike lane markings. It's whatever our maintenance of traffic, manual uniform traffic control devices would recommend them.
Okay.
And the goal was to try and also have the red pavement to try and help with that.
I'm just thinking as we're going to start using them more, I mean, like, it's still kind of a new thing for Des Moines, and so I don't know that it's like a natural thought in people's mind that this is a bike lane. It just kind of looks like a wide sidewalk for a while until somebody rides up behind you.
Yeah, yep, yep. No, that's a good point. And I think some of it also will help when we get more of it in, because right now it's kind of piecemeal, right? We've
Yeah.
only got one phase done, and so
In a
that will-
couple years, hopefully, it'll be like second nature, but
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
sorry, one more thing. For Phase 4 on Ingersoll, we plan on closing the whole road between 28th and 31st.
It would be the same as what's done now. It would be staged. The Phase 4, whoops, can I jumped? The Phase 4, so a lot of the streetscape is actually already in, so the sidewalks and the planters are already done. And so this would be basically from planter curb to planter curb, so that will help with the timing there. But the road itself is in poor condition as well, so we need to actually fully reconstruct and rebuild the entire pavement. So, but it would be the same situation where
Shifting for a few blocks.
shifting traffic, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Another project that's ramping back up again is the East Douglas Avenue reconstruction project. Again, a project where the city has also gotten money from through the MPO to help fund this reconstruction. It was essentially kind of if you want to call it a rural country road with no sidewalks. And so now you can see we've actually, the road reconstruction is complete from 42nd, East 42nd up to Village Run Drive, as well as a lot of the bike trail or the shared use, multi-use trail is installed all the way out to probably about East 43rd. And so the last phase is ramping back up here, which is Village Run Drive to East 56th Street. And the goal is to have that one done by the start of the school year, so it'd be like in August. The basins, if you go out there, you can see we've done some stormwater work. There was some houses that flooded pretty bad downstream of these. We also have had issues with severe erosion in the streams. So we added these basins with the road reconstruction projects. If you go look out there, there's staged outlet structures to one, mitigate flooding, but then also to slow the water down as well. So to try and to basically stop the bleeding, if you will, in the erosion of the streams. Another road reconstruction project where we've gotten funding assistance from the MPO as well. This is the Indianola Avenue reconstruction project that starts actually this week, and we're hoping to be completed by the end of this year. So this one is basically reconstructing again, kind of in response to a lot of the development that's occurring down there. This kind of rural roadway with it to be a new two-lane urban roadway with curbs. Also, we are adding some select left turn lanes at some of the intersections in coordination with having some refuge islands to try and to make it easier for pedestrian crossings, and also adding sidewalks as well as a multi-use trail on the west side. So. Another project, McKinley Avenue, again today, as many of you are aware, is a rural cross-section lacking sidewalks, and so this one we are on pace to start go out and bid this fall here for the phase between Southwest 9th and South Union. This project will include, again, putting in a new roadway with curbs and gutters, as well as a multi-use trail on the north side and sidewalks on the south side. So the next phase, which is starting up design here, would be Southwest 14th to Southwest 9th, and that one would follow this one. The phase that's bidding this fall. So once that one is complete, say in the spring of '24, with that restoration, we would hopefully start the next phase. So bidding that one in the fall following that. So.
And then I assume you'll do Southwest 14th to Fleur Drive after 26, is that right?
That would probably be the next, yep.
And then after that, you'll go to Southeast 14th to Indianola Avenue.
Sorry, what was the last?
Southeast 14th to Indianola Avenue.
That would be, yep. Again, we don't have that one programmed in the
No, I
CIP, but that would be,
There's not a whole lot of residential homes there, but there is I think there's more pedestrian traffic more than anything there, so.
Yep. Yeah. Sewer separations. Again, the city has made incredible progress on these. Well over a $70 million investment in the heart of our neighborhoods. Again, this is the goal of separating stormwater and sanitary sewer flows into separate sewer systems. Basically reducing the flow down to the wastewater treatment plant and also preventing what we call combined sewer overflows. And you can see this map here shows the red dots of where the combined sewer overflow locations are. Again, what those are is if the sewers are anticipated to surcharge, those combined sewer flow overflows are opened. And so, for example, the one at Second and Franklin, up toward the top there, instead of it going into basements, it is overflowed, into the streams. And fortunately, we have made incredible progress as a city in separating this work by doing our sewer separations. And we're having a goal to eliminate all these except for the one down at the treatment plant number 4 by the end of 2023. So I'll go through those here real quick.
Are you done with all the streets then that we're going to talk about?
For the sewer separations? Oh, for the streets? No, not, yes, the streets separate, except for local option sales and service tax. I have a little.
Okay,
I'll do
I
that.
have a question.
Yeah,
That's
of course.
fine.
No, go ahead. Yeah, that'd be fine.
Well, I sent you and Scott an email because I've had some concerns about East University, where the fairgrounds entrances are from East 30th to basically to Pleasant Hill, about the width of the road and where the utilities are, and just kind of wondering how we can start the process of, through the MPO and the state, because that is a state road, but we have to partner with them, is what I think you've seen the email probably that Andy had said, that from the DOT, that, we need to put it in our CIP so they can come along, and we need to figure out how we need to do that. That road is very thin through there. It's a gateway from the, to the east side into Des Moines, and just wondering what our thoughts are of how we're going to go about that. I didn't get an answer from either one of you guys.
Yep, no, Scott and I talked about that last week, and I was going to send an email on kind of the background of that roadway. It actually, even though it is a 4-lane roadway, has a substantially better than expected performance. It has a pretty low crash history.
Okay.
It is also, as you mentioned, the state, it's a state highway. It also fronts the state fairgrounds. So the state has a huge vested interest in this, to say the least. And so we'd be actually putting this up. We'd be looking at this in comparison with some of our other corridors that we'd be looking to program, and that's what we'll have to be up against. And as you mentioned, it would have to just go through our CIP process to. But I'll send that to you all and in response.
Yeah,
I
have a neighborhood meeting that I have to go to that they're the ones that, as you can tell, has asked for
Yep.
this.
Mhm. Yep.
And so, they're wanting, there's no sidewalks, so we need to figure something out.
The fairgrounds, most of it along that doesn't have sidewalks for the fairground.
But I'm even talking about further to
East
the
33rd up to East 42nd, that's the
Yeah.
worst. That's where the
Down to Williams.
road narrows the most.
It's very thin through there for 4 lanes.
Yep. Mhm.
But I know there's some high-powered electrical
Yeah.
poles there
Yeah.
that are probably going to be very expensive to move, but those are the type of things that,
Transmission lines there.
yeah,
Yeah.
that we need to have a discussion and explanation and cost, so we can explain that to our constituents, and whether the state, how they're going to participate, and what grants we're going to ask for, and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that the stretch we're talking about would be about a mile-long stretch between
Yeah.
East 30th down, say, if you want to go down past to Williams or East 42nd.
Right.
And so just kind of give a benchmark comparison, like the Second Avenue project is about 0.8 of a mile. And so that's, to kind of give you reference, I think the Second Avenue project is in the $15 million range, I think, if I remember correctly. So when we're talking about in terms of magnitude for, if we wanted to completely reconstruct it.
But it is a state, we can go to the state and ask them
Yep.
for funding also. So it's
Yep.
not just our responsibility
Yep.
to do that road, correct?
Correct.
But we have to jointly put something in our CIP to go and ask them for funding. Is that how it works?
That's at least the impression I got and the tone I got from the DOT's response.
Yeah, absolutely.
That they were
That's
not
what Andy's
gonna
telling me.
Yeah, so,
Until we put something in our CIP, they're not even considering it.
yeah.
Okay.
Ordinarily, we'd be responsible for the side streets as well, and so there's a question of, are they going to contribute at the state level 80/20, or what
Right.
level of participation is the state going to put into it?
Well, we need to have those conversations.
Yep.
Because, it is I understand the crashes are less, but, I mean, if, we've all probably driven up that road. I mean, it's very tight to have 4 lanes through there.
Yep.
I think that actually getting some of the trucks off of if that's the Southeast Connector, even
Right.
though it's down the road, will help to get some of the semis off that roadway, because they would go straight out. They wouldn't go out University to get to the interstate.
Absolutely.
Hopefully.
Okay.
Great, thank you. The Lower Oak and Highland Park sewer separation, that project was to eliminate the combined sewer overflow located at the Birdland Marina Sanitary Pump Station. That one is complete, and so this is, you can see as part of the project, our city has incorporated what we call green infrastructure to not, so we're not only separating the flows, running a separate storm sewer system, but here we're trying to promote groundwater infiltration, actually reduce the amount of water that's even getting to the sewers. This is a permeable brick paver street right by Finley Elementary School on Tiffin Avenue. So just going to show, but again, this one is complete.
How many street sweepers do we have that are able to deal with roads like this?
I apologize, I don't know off the top of my head how many. I know our Public Works Department, I'm proud, Jonathan Gano is very passionate about green infrastructure. I know he has what they need for these is the vacuum sweepers to actually suck up prevent the clog, I guess, mitigate the clogging of this. Because basically these bricks kind of just, all they are is they have kind of nibs on them to kind of provide a little bit more spacing. And then beneath them, instead of using a sand layer and then a compacted gravel layer with fines, it's actually like a fine layer of chips as kind of the bedding, and then basically gravel without fines. So actually there's kind of we calculate to be about a 40% void space to store water underneath the roadway itself. So that's the big difference there. And so obviously with the joints in between, instead of the older brick streets that were built, say 100 years ago, where we actually kind of used a kind of call it like a tar to kind of fill in the joints, there's not that in there. And so we need to actually have a sweeper that vacuums out the debris. But I apologize, I can't tell you how many sweepers he
that's
has,
okay.
but he does have that.
It's not your department.
Nope, that's all right.
But we didn't have any, to my understanding, a few years ago, so that's a great question, and
Yep.
I was going to ask the same thing. So do we don't know how many we purchased?
We have one.
We bought one, I'm finding out we haven't.
Okay, all
Okay.
right,
yep,
perfect.
Yep.
I'm just curious
You're right.
about like scaling.
Yeah, well, we didn't have any. That's,
Yep. Yeah, Councilmember Gatto's right, and as Pam mentioned, we just bought one a few
Right.
years ago when we started putting all these pervious pavements all over. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. The near west sewer side separation. Again, this one, and I know it's apologies, it's probably hard to see the colors here, but this is the overall map. The first 3 phases are all complete as of last week, and then the final phase, phase 4, which is part of the green that you see kind of in the north side of this. That one is about 80% complete, with the remaining work along Clark Street, as well as some on Forest Avenue between 22nd and 21st, and 21st Street between Carpenter. So kind of that area, you'll see work, but we hope that work will be completed this summer. The Riverbank King Irving sewer separation work. This work is substantially complete. The last piece was that green piece way up by the river toward the top there, and that's the photo on the left of the sewer outfall there. And the final piece would be what's shown in yellow along 2nd Avenue that's done as part of that road reconstruction project as well. So. In Western Ingersoll sewer separation, again, we talked a little bit about this earlier. This one, the phase 1, which is south of I-235, it's shown in yellow there. This includes work along Ingersoll, between 35th and 41st Street, which again, the large sewer has been put in between 35th and 38th. And so that's the one that's, and then it works up into the neighborhoods. That phase 1 is about 30% complete. Phase 2, which is north of 235, shown in green, there'll be a lot of construction going on this year up in that area, and that one we hope to be complete. That'll be a two-year project, 22, 23. The final phase, we've actually are getting bids on Tuesday, and again, this one, phase 3, which is shown in blue, would be completed substantially completed by the end of 23 as well. So that's the last of the sewer separations that are the city's responsible for. The WRA will be doing the large sewer that runs along Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway and up into the west side of downtown, basically by 17th, 18th Street in that area, up to connect to these projects here. So.
What's the timing of phase 1? I mean, the Ingersoll work is pretty disruptive. How long do we think that'll take to get them off Ingersoll and up into the neighborhood on this stuff?
Well, to be honest, it'll occur all this year because we've got the piece between 38th and 41st, and then we've got to also do some lateral crossings to put intakes along the south side of the road. So it'll take this entire year, and I think that hopefully by the end of this year they'll at least be up into the neighborhoods. So, but yeah, it's a very large sewer, and then last year at 35th there was a large gas main that was in the way, and that was not where it was anticipated to be, and that caused some considerable delays. So.
Yeah, we didn't do a great job communicating with the businesses down in that stretch, but I think we've got that taken care of, and hopefully we're mindful of that, and are going to be helping a little more with signage and parking, because.
And also making sure the inspection staff are actually going into the business, making sure, stopping into the business, make sure that they very well know our people on site, so, yeah. That's
Right, well, particularly the small businesses that rely on the street parking versus, I'm less concerned about the Walgreens and US Bank, more concerned about, I mean, there's a healthy number of small businesses along there that are impacted a lot more.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right, stormwater management. Our city council, especially after the flood event in 2018, made a even more extensive investment in stormwater management. One of the big efforts is this large watershed, which we call Hamilton Drain. It used to be a county drainage district that was called Hamilton Drain, and so we've just always that's the name of this project. And so this is in the Highland Park neighborhood, and basically what the existing drainage is I know it's kind of hard to see here, but there's a red line that kind of runs diagonally across the page. That's an old wood box culvert, which is called the Rocky Place Storm Sewer. It was installed in the 1930s. And then, of course, later in the 1950s, all these houses and streets were built, some of which, as our ward council member knows, are right on top of the storm sewer. Yep. So, yes, a number of homes, that are on top. Because the storm sewer was put in was put in the 30s, and then the houses were just built in the 50s, right over top of them. Yeah, so that we had some people who were very aware of it, and then we also had some people in our public meetings that, to be honest, were very surprised. So, yeah.
I know a resident was surprised when he got potato chip wrappers and grass clippings in his basement from the broken storm sewer.
Yeah. And so This area has experienced flooding. This area also, the Federal Emergency Management Administration, FEMA, has designated this area as a special flood hazard area, which means if folks that are within that flood zone boundary with a mortgage that is federally backed, which is almost all mortgages, would be they'd be required to purchase flood insurance. And so we've put together a conceptual plan to basically eliminate that as that we're going to basically have a goal of reducing the number of structures that are anticipated to pond in excess of 1 foot during a 100-year event from 82, which is the number today, down to 0. So there are 82 houses in this zone that are during what we call a 1% annual exceedance chance storm, or also known as the 100-year flood, would be under a foot of water down to 0. So, and then it also reduces the number of properties that are impacted by a flood event from 175 down to 1. The 1 is due to topography. It's infeasible to get that done, but a substantial improvement to say the least. We've got a plan here that's 4 phases. Phase 1, and working with the neighborhoods, a really cool effort there. Through communications with our mayor and ward council member, we worked with the church in the area. The churches talked about infrastructure improvements in the area, and it just so happened we had this effort programmed. They had 2 large old parking lots that were not in the best of shape. The area also needed updating. There were no sidewalks. The streets weren't in great shape. And so in coordination with all that, we put underneath, we tore up their parking lots, put in a storm sewer easement, and then put these large chambers underneath the parking lots. And if you go out there today, I took the KCCI news image there, you wouldn't know they're there. So there's new parking lots, but underneath is this million gallons of plus storage. And then we were also able to fix up the streets and the sidewalks. Again, this is incorporated in this whole plan. I'm going to go back here. It's not just, the old school mentality was just conveyance. This plan works in what we call storage as well. And so actually incorporating what we call stormwater detention to store those events. And that's what this does. So if the storm sewer systems start to get overwhelmed, the stormwater backs up into these chambers and is stored here in these chambers instead of, to be honest, basements.
So if I understand what you were saying earlier, all of the homes on that map that you said there were like 82 homes that needed to get the flood insurance, we're eliminating that need or no?
Actually, yep. So there's actually 100. Let me clarify. I apologize. I worded that in a different phasing, but there's 175 properties that would be that are mandated to buy flood insurance, and then there are 82 homes of this 175. 82 of those homes we would model to be anticipate to be under a foot of water during a 100-year event, but actually it's 175 that would be mandated to get the flood insurance.
And us doing this work changes that status so that they don't have to get flood insurance?
Correct.
Okay.
And most, yeah, absolutely. And most importantly, math drastically reduces the flood risk. It would be the biggest, yeah. But yep, absolutely, yeah. Yep.
Steve, I just have to compliment you because I know that this has been a long process, but you guys have been really great to work with the neighborhood and the homeowners and the church. I know, I sat in on those meetings, and you guys really did a great job.
Thank you, thank you. Yep, and again, kudos and thanks to the city, to our mayor and council for folks that, just to bring back the, right after the flood response, our city council injected an enormous amount of money investment into to allow these projects, and I have some more efforts I'm going to talk about here in a second, to move this forward and get this work done. What's going on right now This phase 2 is about 25% complete. Again, we talked about stormwater detention. The brown areas are we're actually, that are kind of shown in brown, those are contours. We're actually building detention basins. So off of York and Jerry Lynn, if you see over on the right there, was kind of an old, I don't know, it's just a field or kind of a wooded area that we've gone back in there and worked and then regraded it all and then had a storm sewer connection. So again, if the storm sewer system starts to get overwhelmed, the water goes back into this basin. But we also have the conveyance side of things as well. So the blue line is the replacement of, if you will, the Rocky Place storm sewer. So instead of the stormwater conveying through that sewer, it will go through this new storm sewer that I'm not going to, but I could essentially walk down, 7-foot diameter sewer, and so this will replace that. So again, we're doing conveyance and stormwater detention. So, yep, and then phase 2, like I said, is underway, and hopefully to be completed by late this year. So, whoops, make sure I didn't. Yeah. Another massive watershed project. This is what we call the Closest Creek Watershed Project. Basically, you could just to kind of show you how whenever there's flooding, we pull out the old, like the 1940s maps, the 1930s aerials, and we can kind of see where we think the water wanted to go. And so if you looked at the flow of this watershed, the flow generally, let's say before all the houses were here, would go from about where you see the 1B and the 13 in the upper left. It would kind of form a whole, I don't know if maybe it's a V shape, but would come southeast down toward that 1A and then back northeast up all toward the 9. So I don't know if does that make sense. That's generally how the water wants to go. And so, of course, a lot of this area built, well before the 1970s when stormwater standards started to come into place. And so that's the challenge we have. We have existing neighborhoods, and so when the storm sewer system that's in place, is over time, if it does get overwhelmed by large storm events, the water's going to go where it wants to go, and so that's generally where it wants to flow. And so, again, through incredible investment from the city has made extensive progress in the past handful of years on doing these improvements. And so, starting with back as a box culvert under 30th Street and Jefferson Avenue, phases 1A and 1B. So 1B, I'm sorry, 1A is the labeled as the Macokota Drive sewer box. Again, that's putting in a very massive stormwater box. That's for conveyance purposes. And people would say, well, why did we go up and do 1B at the top of the watershed first? Again, that's kind of back to our conveyance side of things. Oops, so we had a street reconstruction project programmed in our CIP. So we figured, well, now's the time we can get some storage. So underneath that street is these large 12-foot wide chambers that go up and down each side of the street. And so on the left is what's underground, and on the right is what you would go out and see there today. Again, that's kind of the same concept that we talked about before. When the sewer system gets overwhelmed, the stormwater backs up into those chambers, so it's providing some earlier relief while we continue to put in the large sewer. What's going on today is 2A and 2B in orange. 2A is essentially there's a wood box that runs along there and conveys the flow. We're actually creating openings in the box to utilize the old ravine, the ravine that's there to store water, to provide some detention. And then also 2B is again creating some detention basins. And I think I had some photos.
Which ones have we completed on that map?
So we've completed 1A, 1B, and then 2A and 2B are I think if I remember about 70% 70% complete.
So how many years before we get to phase 16?
So what we've told the neighborhoods was we need to have 3. So 3 is the major sewer that runs from the basins up to essentially Hickman, 47th, and Holcomb. That's kind of the main artery of all this. We said we would get that all done by the end of '23. So there is not money programmed for the outer phases like 16. How those are being looked at is currently our Public Works Department's leading an effort for stormwater master planning that's going on, and they're looking at calculating risk scores to see, okay, where do we go next? Is it continue with some of these outer watersheds, or is it other locations throughout the city? But our goal here was to get this main artery in 1A, 2B, and 3, and 1B, so that way at least we got the main artery.
So how did we identify these in the first place then, if we're doing this study now? Because I remember we had talked about that at a previous work session.
So there was a study that was done in the early 2000s. That study really was, again, focused on conveyance. So that study would have included essentially 1A and 3. And that was already in the plan. And then when the 2018 flood event, the Public Works and Engineering Department kind of got together and said, well, we need to also work in some storage. And so we added in 2A, 2B, and 1B to provide that stormwater detention into the mix. And that was decided, to get that main artery in. And then there was a number of public meetings. We have stormwater committees that we met regularly with, and then also the public meetings that were held at the Franklin Community Center to communicate that the goal was to get this all done by the end of 2023. So
The other numbers, like I'm asking, is like how did we identify those? If we have all of this up to 16 on this map, but then we're just planning on completing up to 3, and then we're doing this new study to figure out what needs to happen next. Like, how did we identify and number these in the first place?
So what we identified was that again, 2A, 1A, 2B, 3, that's kind of the main artery. So that's why that was already, we programmed that money in with the money that was injected through the stormwater rates and also through local option sales and service tax. And then the outer areas, they're kind of branches, if you will, off the main artery. And so those are being compared with the rest of the city because it's kind of a whole, what's the highest risk for failure, failure of a system or for flooding. So, and I apologize, I hope I'm maybe not answering.
So when was this map put together? Was this map put together in 2000 or in 2018?
The map was initially developed in the early 2000s, and then in 2018, we added 2A, 2B, and 1B, so it is a little different, And actually, in the early 2000s, you would have seen there would be more phases between 2A and 9, but those were done before I came. So.
Okay, so this is essentially old information, and we need to reassess what the priorities are.
Yep.
Okay.
It's citywide, yeah.
And wasn't 3 where the heavier amounts of flooding were done too?
Absolutely, yep. And so, 1B, 3, 2B, those areas, we tracked all the damage from the 2018 event, and you would see that was where you'd see probably the heaviest amount of red dots, if you will, from the damage that occurred in 2018. So, yep. And actually, phase 3, again, happy to report that construction will be starting within the week here. So again, 2A and 2B are about 70% complete. Let me show you here. Oh, that's 1B. So this is what we talked about. On the left, there's Whitmer Park right there, and there's a ravine that runs between Beaver and 34th. Currently, the drainage goes through a wood box, And so we figured, well, one, let's increase the capacity. So we've, on the right, you see we're punching larger culverts underneath the road in addition to the existing one culvert that's there. You can see the size of those culverts. There's an inspector standing there on the right. And she could probably walk through those because she's not over 7 feet tall. So, and so we're not only punching culverts underneath, we're also opening up the box to utilize the volume of space in the ravines to provide some storage and then running that sewer up to continue this conveyance aspect. So again, you can see the culverts are in place. And then also we talked about, we added in stormwater detention. There were some houses, unfortunately, at the bottom of this at College and 41st that were hit hard, to say the least, in the flooding. And so we did acquire those properties, and then that gave us more space to put in this stormwater basin, which you see graded out here today. So. And then, like I said, this is the main artery phase here that goes from those basins all the way up to 1B. This is Franklin Avenue right in the middle of the page here. That one will be starting within this week. It'll be about a 2-year project. You figure about a year on Franklin Avenue and then maybe a year going up to 48th Street.
This is phase 3 we're looking at right now?
Yep, this is phase 3. Yep, and that'll start within the week here.
Is that 2 years?
About a 2-year project, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Oops. Okay. Continuing on the flood mitigation efforts that the city is doing, this is our flood mitigation program for our levee system. And that we have, just kind of the quick background on that, based on modeling that was done by our federal government and by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. The flow frequencies have increased. And so the city, in response, has put together a plan to improve the levee system, to elevate it not only to FEMA standards, but we've made the decision to add a buffer and go beyond that. So we're hitting a couple standards. We're doing FEMA plus a half a foot and meeting the U.S. Army Corps standards, which is the 90% assurance level, which is a modeling aspect to account for modeling accuracies. So we are going above and beyond what would be needed for FEMA accreditation. And so we've put together this plan that starts upstream in the green A, and then works our way downstream. And here's kind of a summary of what's, we've also, we're not just improving the levees, there's interior drainage work. So when, for example, here in this scenario, when the Columbus neighborhood, McKinley neighborhood, has a rain event when the river is high, what happens is, so if we go out there today when the river is lower and it rains, the water just flows out the storm sewer. But when the river is high and we get a rain event, we need to actually use this pump station to pump it over the flood protection system. And so part of our interior drainage work was doing just that, improving the interior drainage, improving the storm sewer conveyance, as well as replacing the older pump stations. This one was just done, just recently completed at Southeast 4th and Van Buren. And this was another one in just south of Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway, kind of east of the river. And this one, when we got into the design, to be honest, we originally thought this was just going to be a replacing the pump station project. But when we got into it, our Public Works Department was talking about, well, there had issues with flooding, essentially at Maury and Southeast 11th Street. There's actually a brand new, relatively new habitat development that happened there, or that occurred there. So we've got a number of homes there, and we found that the water is having issues getting to the pump stations. And so we had to do even more work inside. And so that was eliminating what we call a siphon, where the storm sewer system was conflicting with the sanitary sewer, and then also adding some conveyance capacity where you see the yellow. We added a 30-inch line, and then also we added a stormwater basin and kind of basically just kind of an unused property north of Cohen Park. And so again, now what happens is the drainage that comes from north of Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway that still comes through this area, through this neighborhood, now instead it's diverted into the basin to provide storage and mitigate flooding within our neighborhood there.
Could you go back 2 slides?
Yep.
So, and I'm looking at Pam back here. This is all the levee system that we're working on to bring it to your point. Has it been or received final approval from the Corps of Engineers?
So we do have Section 408 approval on the whole concept plan, but each package as we bid them would need separate approval as well. So A has been approved, B and C, we hope, I know B, we hope to get approval here this month to actually start. They need to also give us permission to start construction. So they gave us approval on the overall concept for B, the overall concept for the whole program, and then they need to give us the go-ahead on, yes, you can start construction for each package, which would be the A, B, and C. A is actually substantially completed construction. B is, we hope to have that go-ahead this month.
So we got C, D, E, F, G, and H that we are still waiting approval for?
D through H we're actually starting the actual construction design. So D through H, we've received approval on the concept of what we're doing, but D through H, we're actually going to move forward with construction design now.
So how long have we been working on this?
For probably nearly, I'd say, since the 2011 study, right? I think
Keep going.
so about 10 years, yeah.
No, keep going.
Points north.
I know that we've been working on this at least since 2000. And I believe we even were working on it before that with Senator Harkin back into the 1980s.
So from the 1983 flood, there was a study that was done and improvements were made. 2011, we got new information.
Well,
In this whole effort.
After 93, we got the improvements around Central Place and where they were able to do that, and then north of that into Birdland. So we got those 2 done, but they wouldn't approve that even though they're connected to the rest of this whole system. As you know, we've struggled, at least I've struggled, with 6 generals. Let's get her done.
And just a comment on that, I know that, and Pam's been really good about working with me on this, but, we still have those, the Corps of Engineers said we had the sand boils up there by North High, but now they've come back and said it's just fine. That makes me a little nervous.
Yeah. Yep.
Does it make the rest of you nervous? No?
Well, it's more, again, it's about a risk-based assessment. What it was they, for the Berlin levee, when they rebuilt that levee, they essentially only took a couple cross sections for geotechnical analysis, and basically what they're analyzing is water is flowing underneath the levee system, what we call seepage. And if there's not a thick enough layer of clay to hold that water down, there's a risk that, as Councilmember Westergaard mentioned, what we call sand boils, where water would come up behind the levee, and that would run a risk, that could run the risk of the levee overturning and failing. And so what we do to combat that is, one, we either put, in our case, for example, on Phase B, we did already put basically added thickness to the layer of clay, behind the levee, we call it a seepage blanket to keep it from doing that. Or we also do things called seepage mitigation, seepage relief trenches. So we actually install an underground piping system to give the water a place to go, so it's relieving the pressure from the levee system. Or we also install things like cutoff walls, which we have programmed down by the Jackson Basin. And so those actually kind of stop the flow. And so the issue was the Corps, again, didn't take, they took a couple cross sections. Well, then when we did our sewer separation project and did an analysis, because anytime we work around the levees, we want to model and analyze what we're doing to make sure that we don't cause any adverse impact to the levee system. So we put in a stormwater basin up by the high school, and then we analyzed the levee and recognized that, wait a minute, there was an existing location where there wasn't as much of a clay layer. So we brought that to the Army Corps' attention, and then of course then they've done their further analysis. When you're right, they first came out and said that this does not meet our standards, and they were going to do some more investigation. They since have actually done that thorough investigation, and through modeling and analyzing the system have recognized that it's not at a high risk, that there'd be essentially it would take the risk is really for the levee would be more overtopping than it would be for a seepage issue. So, and even then there's not a high risk that the levee would overtop. I mean, there is obviously risk behind a levee at all times, but in the sake of the risk, they determined that it's not warranted to do any further improvements.
So what happened in 2008 when it breached? That was for a similar issue, right? That weakened it and it blew out.
And I think that was before it was actually reconstructed. Yep, I'll let him.
Oh, absolutely it was.
Mayor, that was before the levee was reconstructed. That levee was never constructed to standards. It didn't have the clay cross-section. It had trees growing in it. It was not a levee that was built to Corps standards. So that's the part that breached, or one of the parts that breached.
So we built it and they accepted it as part of their system?
No, it was
Who
never
built it?
accepted as part of their system.
Who built it?
The new levee was built by the Corps.
Right.
And it's
Who
part of
built
their
the
system.
other one?
The previous one, I believe, was the city.
Okay.
But it was never built to Corps standards, never part of the Corps system.
Decades ago.
Excuse
No,
me?
I understand.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, yeah,
and now
decades, yeah.
the reconstruction, which we found a little bit of a flaw in, they've finally come back and used their magic wand and said, no, this will be okay.
They did a risk analysis approach that Steve described and determined that there's a higher risk of the levee overtopping than there is of one of the sand boils causing a breach.
And they didn't want to exactly admit that they had flawed in their design in the
Well,
first
they
place.
admitted it. They have a report that admits that. And it called it a design deficiency report.
So rather than fix it, they just decided it's not really a risk, that it's
There's a high,
overtopping is a
if they
better.
went in and did those type of repairs, it's more degrading to the levee than leaving it as it is. So there's a lower risk keeping it as it is. It's more sound as it is than messing with it.
And that's where they
Okay.
came and talked to all of us in your office and said that they had made a mistake and they weren't going to pay for any type of
We had
repairs.
we had a certain level of responsibilities for those, a cost share of 35%
Right.
if the work was to be done. So we paid for a portion of that 35% of the study, and then the determination was made based on the risk not to do a construction project.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
They came back, I think the mayor and Councilperson Westergaard were in that meeting, and they're working on their public message at this point.
Yeah, I
We-
didn't know anything about that.
We've encouraged them that this is their message to deliver, and we don't want to try to explain that just because it is rather confusing.
That's a nice way to put it, thank you.
Sorry, when was that
many generals.
study done?
I'm sorry?
When was that study done?
Just this past year.
Last year? Okay.
Yeah, it's fairly recent. Was it maybe 2 months ago, maybe, that we got
You mean the new
results?
study or when they originally came out and told us? it
Originally
wasn't?
was 2 years ago,
At least
2019, wasn't it?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was before the pandemic.
Yeah, it was definitely before the pandemic. And since that time, they've been working on that that risk analysis.
So they did more intensive study.
Yes.
The
Correct.
issue. Okay.
Okay, and so that is not the same issue as the map that we were looking at with the A through H.
That was all related to the Birdland levy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, sorry, so the improvements that we were asked to do on that map around downtown, when were we asked to do those, I guess? Like, was that the 2011, or is that's more recent?
The 2011 modeling and analysis that the Corps of Engineers did, we programmed those in response to their analysis, because their analysis shows the water levels are higher during the 100-year storm events. And FEMA says, so that's the Corps' analysis. FEMA says for us to recognize that a levee is acknowledged on our special flood hazard maps, the levee systems need to be a minimum of 3 feet, we call freeboard, above the 100-year water elevation. And so basically with the new modeling, a lot of our levee system was, say, 2 feet or 2.5 feet above. Well, does not meet the freeboard requirements. And then when we get near structures like bridges and stuff, then we have to be 4 feet above. So right outside here, you'll actually see, this seat wall out here for the Simon Estes Amphitheater, we elevated it and we essentially put a structural cap on the top of it to raise it like a foot, and not even a foot actually, because it was, that wall was only something like 2 feet, 7 inches above the 100-year elevation. So the city, immediately in response to receiving that information in 2011, the city got some modeling consultants involved that have extensive expertise in doing levee system accreditation, and then developed over that time this plan to respond to that.
Was it just around the downtown area that we had to focus on, or?
Yes, because the whole system that you see here in color, even 4 Mile, because that's the system that was essentially not high enough and does not meet the requirements for accreditation.
Okay.
So, yeah. And then, of course, we did, not to go into too much of the weeds, but we did, then the city tried to work with the Corps of Engineers to have the federal government help us do a project. And then that, of course, extended out some time with that effort. The Corps did a study to see if this would warrant federal assistance to justify a project. Unfortunately, the fact that there is a levee system lowers the risk, because there is a robust system. So the Corps decided, no, we cannot justify a project. City, you have to do a project on your own.
Okay. And so this risk assessment and all of this, the plan and the creating it and deciding if we were going to get federal assistance or not, like this took from 2011 till whenever we started A?
We started the interior drainage work like in 2017 type time. So we
Okay.
started doing, because we were able to get that work permitted faster. So I think it was 2017, we elevated the Red Bridge, and so actually this bridge, the Red Bridge out here was a restriction. So we actually jacked it up, kind of like you would a car. We elevated it 4.5 feet.
Okay.
So we've started work back as, 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay.
We were actually following a parallel path. We were looking for the core support and the federal funding, and we were also looking at how do we solve this ourselves. So it was dual paths to figure out which one's going to get there and get this done, and maybe it was going to be both. We obviously were disappointed when the federal government came back and said they could not support a project, but at the same time, the state had done a funding program as a result of what happened in Cedar Rapids in 2008 and what happened here in 2008, and we were successful in getting that funding with the WRA to help fund the levee project. And that funding came through in 2015, 2016, I think was finalized. So we've been consistently working on this since the Corps essentially dropped that report on our desk. That report came at the heels of us finishing the certification and submitting everything to FEMA in 2009 or 10. we've been working, like the mayor suggested, we've been working on this levy system since 1993 and before.
It's just we got new standards in 2011
We
and
just
then
got
had
a
to
new
start all
stand-
over?
Right, we'd almost finished with Riverwalk, we'd done a bunch of levee improvements, we'd done everything needed to certify our levees, and we had submitted the report to FEMA, everything had gone through, and then the Corps had this study based on the increased flooding that happened in 2008 and 2010. So we got to start all over, so that's kind of the long-winded history.
Okay, yeah, so it's just like a long process with lots of agencies that you have to go through. Okay, thank you.
So just as a recap, we had 100-year flood events exceeding in 93, 2008, 3 in 2010, and whatever the heck has happened since then. So it's not waiting 100 years for this to happen. It's
Yeah.
like, and that money that is coming totals what, 111 million?
Yes.
And that comes out of the state sales tax. So that's not our sales tax, and that money is committed, and it's apparently going to pay out over 30 years.
It's something like
Was it
30
30?
years.
I don't remember the
Get us good, about a third way through.
Yeah.
So we're a third of the way through it as we speak, so we've got 35 million or thereabouts, hopefully in hand so far.
It's not
Between-
even, the payments fluctuate quite a bit.
No, I understand, but you figure we have that amount already in hand.
Between us and the WRA.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So we're going to be working on the levy for the next 20 years is the plan?
It's allowed to pay for debt
Okay,
issued on it, so we have
Yeah.
to decide as we're going along, how much cash do we have? Do we have enough to pay as we go?
okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yep. And what you see up here is a picture of what was done in Phase A. This was also raised down by the Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway Bridge. You see, we have to rebuild the levees, compact them in lifts there to elevate them. The gray shade that you see is actually the levee fill, the levee raise. So the old levee was kind of the uneven line that you see, and then the dash line. So you see the call out toward the bottom there, the 100-year water surface. That's the modeled water surface. The dash line above that, where it says 44 CFR 6510, that is where we have to be at a minimum. And then we're actually building it up to the top of the gray, which you see is with some buffer.
Is this a cross-section or?
This would be a profile of the levee, yeah. So like if you were standing in the river looking at the levee.
So it was like uneven?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yep. Yep. Oops. Okay. My mouth's too much down. Yep, and so this is kind of where we're looking at moving forward here with B 2223, C 2325. That's the one that we've been working in coordination with the Central Icon Water Trails Project. And then we'd start D and then work our way downstream. Okay. All right, another thing the city has made, in my opinion, incredible progress on is at filling in sidewalk gaps. And so you can see the stat there. We've already built in what, I think it's in 3 fiscal years. When we started this initiative in July of 2019, we built over 13.3 miles, or about 13.3 miles of sidewalks. And then this, with the sidewalks we have under contract, and, we're looking at being over 18 miles in 4 fiscal years. So, and there you can kind of see what we've been doing on the left. So you can kind of see the summary there of what's been done. We're also incorporating a lot of the work within CIP projects as we do them. So when you look at like some of those previous years, you see that spike 7.4 miles. We obviously added sidewalks with projects like Fleur Drive, East Douglas Avenue, the bike trail that's been put, or the shared multi-use trail that's been put in, projects like that as well. So
How many miles of sidewalk do we, like, of gaps do we have that we need to fill?
if I remember, it was like over 600 miles of gaps within the city, but there's 190 that we started with when Move DSM was completed that were identified as higher priority, which would be, or priority phase 1, which would be areas near schools, near bus routes, or kind of longer corridors. And that's where we've been focusing a lot of our energy, with the exception that if there is a road reconstruction project that we would add sidewalks as part of that.
What would it look like to fill those gaps within like the priority one even in like 1 or 2 years? Like what would that cost us? Would we be able to get enough crews to do something like that?
Well, we've been averaging about $170 per foot to do the sidewalks. So you're talking like, say, 190 miles.
Yeah, maybe like 100 in 1 year and 90 in the other, something like that.
So 1 million feet. I mean, 200,
Times
you'd be in that
170.
200 million type range. And yeah.
Because it wasn't put in as the city group.
So now our new standards are, we do, as new developments are coming in, they are putting in the sidewalks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And again, I was just trying to punch my calculator up there. I'm always nervous, but
No,
but if you
absolutely.
use that standard, yeah, that would be, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And looking forward, I hopefully you received an email on Friday from me that included this map as a PDF. This is kind of when we look at programming our neighborhood sidewalk program. We've done quite a bit of analysis with the schools of where students are located and where they are walking. We have basically individual maps of each school. And then we developed this program in response to that, also looking at where we have road projects and whatnot. So the orange, the green and the pink, and I know we're running out of colors here, so eventually we're going to have to switch the what's completed to one color and then look moving forward. But the green and the pink has been done. The orange is what's underway. So.
Steve, what's your sense about the price per linear foot just in this reality of spiking expenses?
Yeah, so good question. We generally historically I've always seen anywhere from sidewalks costing anywhere from $50 a linear foot up to $350 a linear foot, and we're starting to the price that we're really seeing now are escalating because, to be honest, we're getting into the more challenging sidewalks to install. Some of the neighborhoods we're going into, there's not a lot of room to work, or we're having to build retaining walls and get right away for them. So I would say it's more due to that than probably price increases on sidewalk. So far in our road projects, we haven't seen as huge a spikes. I think in the past year or so, we've seen about an 8% increase in our road, which is a lot, in our street and sidewalk work, where some of our building construction projects are like a third. It's incredible, the inflation we've seen. So I guess I don't want to downplay the 8%. It still is noticeable, but I would say the more the increase of the ones as we start to get above the 170 and increasing is due to the complexity of the project than it is the material price increase.
So it's like the retaining walls and challenges that way. So.
Yeah, when we first, in 2019, 2020, when we started this, if you remember, we put sidewalks like along East Euclid Avenue. And again, not that those weren't hard. There were some areas that were hard, but there were some areas that already had like paths worn where people are walking, so we had some space to put the sidewalks. But when we're getting into some of these neighborhoods, it's like the ones around Howe and Wright. There's a lot more grade challenges to deal with and tighter areas to work in. So.
And Steve, do we make it clear to the homeowners that the retaining walls then become their responsibility?
Yep. So there's actually like, our real estate department works with the property owners, and there's a document that talks about the retaining walls, yeah. If that's, depending on the case where it is, yeah. There are some retaining walls in the city, though, that are city retaining walls, though, so depending on the location.
So phases 8 and 9,
Well, phases 6, 7, 8, and 9, you don't have any years by them. What is the years that we're going to complete those? Is it all 2023, 2024?
No, those would just be subsequent years likely, but, we do tend to shuffle those around. They do tend to move, I guess kind of example, as development happens, we have, I guess just to give an example, we had a sidewalk program around Willamere. We are moving that up a year in this program. So as development occurs or as road project occurs, they can change. But
How about specifically the Easter Lake Drive, the multi-use trail that in the budget pre-COVID, then it was taken out.
So
now
that
it's putting back in, and now you're telling me it's going to be like 4 years from now?
So I apologize. This is only the neighborhood sidewalk program. We actually programmed money in the CIP specifically for that as a special project. So so for example, Fleur is not on here, like the road projects.
Okay.
Yeah, this is actually that when you see projects come out as the neighborhood sidewalk program. So like we just had one, the 2022 neighborhood sidewalk program, then it's these. But the Easter Lake actually has its own sheet in the CIP.
So this is actually what I was talking about between Southeast 14th and Indianola Road on McKinley. You have that phase 8 and 9, that's just going to be put in a sidewalk there, correct, or no? Or are we going to do the road then?
So what we try and do is use this as a basis. So as that project comes through, the McKinley project, we can look at this and say, oh, this is accounted for into the McKinley project. So this will fall off of a sidewalk neighborhood budget. This is really used for budgeting for matching the dollars in SW081.
But we don't have the McKinley Street project in there, so I
Correct.
guess I'm asking you, since you have that sidewalk, and we talked about it earlier, where the pedestrian traffic is probably the biggest concern there with that, are you saying, so phases 8 and 9, you have that green line right there?
Correct.
From McKinley, from
Correct.
14th to Indianola?
Correct.
So that's 26, 27 and 28?
And that should fall in line. And in phases 8 and 9, there's a lot of distance in there, and a lot of these phases in the lime green or 8 and 9 are challenging. They're big projects. I mean, East 33rd, that's a big project. So it might become a more CIP-based project.
You have to redo the whole road.
Yeah,
Well, then
so-
you have Southeast Fifth, it looks like, from Porter to Watrous.
And if you look at that on the west side of the road, there's a lot of new homes
There
going
is.
in, and there should be gaps maybe filling in.
There is.
And then the rest of them do look like it's a fairly straightforward project. You don't
Yep.
have to redo the whole road on that one. So-
Okay.
So that's kind of, it's a really smart connection, but it doesn't fall into that high priority.
Right,
It
there's
didn't
not a
make
lot
it
of
up in-
school and it's not a transit.
And it didn't make it up into the higher colors.
But we have plenty of sidewalks around Lovejoy School right now, is what you're telling me.
Let's see.
Lovejoy's is further south.
Yeah, Lovejoy is,
By East 14th,
yeah, it's, and a lot of those are going in around Wright. I mean, those are actually under contract
Yeah.
now. And so,
I know it, that's why I don't know if there's sidewalk all around.
There is a gap between the school and East 14th.
Yes.
In that ravine area, yeah.
But you don't have that, we're not making that a priority around the school?
This is not all of the priorities, right?
No,
There's still-
this is like what we're trying to put into the, yeah.
Okay.
We're only going to be like 1/6 done once we get everything that's identified on this map, right? I mean,
Okay.
we still have the vast majority of the priority one sidewalks, even after we do all of these phases that are identified.
Yeah.
That's the next 18 miles, right? Like that's
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the piece that you were saying at
Yeah.
the couple slides in. 18 miles, 18 more miles gets you all of, what, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah.
8 and 9.
Yep. Okay.
So that's only 18 miles. It's not.
Right, okay.
We've got a lot left.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Local option sales and service tax. Thanks to this, the passing of this program, we've been able to really attack a lot of our streets in the neighborhoods. And so this is kind of the statistics there for that. With the 11 million we got since August 2019, so that's 32 months. The city's completed 33 lane miles of road rehabilitation work. So, and there's kind of the breakdown there. We already have another 12 under contract with our programs that, our city council has been moving forward with as we speak. So, yeah. Sure.
The same thing on the roads, too. To get them up to, because they were in pretty poor conditions, to get all the roads up to fair, how many miles? Or into good?
Really what it is our public works department, they manage a pavement management system. They utilize a Dayton software, and they model the entire street network. And so, and to a point to try and keep, and put together a program that basically, it's kind of an optimized program. What would be the best program of a mixture of maintenance work? You see our public works folks out there doing patching and doing slurry seals, to actually doing resurfacing work, where we kind of do structural overlays, to where we do reconstructions. And so there's, when I used to do this for a number of communities before I came here, I would kind of use a whole color chart or colored system to kind of almost like you saw on the sidewalks to
Yeah,
kind of
right. That's what
identify
I just saw.
condition. And it's not feasible to shoot for all streets to be in excellent or good condition. I know it sounds bizarre, but it's not
How about?
it's not feasible. I mean, I work for cities all throughout the Chicagoland area, the what you call the different states, different areas, and it's
Compare Stellan, please.
no, yeah. So, but either way, regardless, so generally you try and aim to get your overall street condition index up. And so that's what they've done is develop programming, and you could see it on their webpage where they kind of have that future plan, the future 20-year plan, to try and target those streets. So I don't have an answer on like
no,
what would it
just
take
curious.
to get there, but I can tell you that Jonathan works with Scott to how to program each year to try and hit that optimized level of what you should be spending to get your streets in
Yeah,
order.
I was just curious, because you had so many miles of gaps, so how many road gaps do we have of
Sure.
getting them in?
Sure, yep.
Well, it would be nice to get, I think it's been a few years since we've seen a street assessment in terms of the poor, very poor, fair, good, excellent breakdown. And I think that would be a useful metric to see. I know we've done X number of lane miles, but how does that translate in terms of the overall shape of the
Yeah.
Road system.
road system? Right, so we have a sense of, because if we have to prioritize funding decisions going forward still, like, where are we at? How are we doing?
Yeah, I think we were in the MSC the last time we had that type of discussion. That Jonathan had came in and said, we need to step up our spending or we're never gonna, but we should be getting closer, much
Yeah,
closer.
it takes a lot of years to make up for decades of
Neglect.
falling behind.
And it's always managing it, like I said, I try to manage it in a cycle. And so, for example, some of the communities I worked with in Illinois, they had massive amounts of neighborhoods that were built in the 70s. Well, guess what happens in 2000, right? You have these huge amounts of streets hit all at the same time a certain age.
Right.
And then it's, so of course, then that was what the thing was working with the kind of the more outer suburbs where they're having this massive growth. It's trying to prepare for that, right? All these streets, you have all this development and it all hits you all at once. And so it's trying to look at it as a cycle, but.
Well, I think that helps put context in when we're saying budget. It helps us, when we know we have how many more miles of sidewalks or how many more miles of roads or whatever.
So when you're saying that like it's not feasible to get to a good condition, is that just like because time passes and things are like eroding essentially as you're working on other projects?
Correct, yep. And maybe good is not the right word. So if we look at a pavement condition index between 0 and 100, it's not feasible to have all your streets above 90, let's put it that way. Because again, like you said, there's 2,200 lane miles in the city, and even as new developments are going in, right? Well, Brook Run is 20 years old, right? I mean, you look at some of these like developments are, it just over time they degrade. So trying to manage the overall cycle and where do we spend our money to try and keep that overall network in place.
When we were behind from before, we're just trying to
Yes.
catch up to get to the middle ground.
Yep,
And then
absolutely.
you have the new ones coming on that are.
Yep.
We have a lot of like big projects, big road projects, road reconstructions, we've got the sewer projects, and everything like that. I don't know where like residential roads kind of fall on our ability or like on the horizon.
So it's, again, it still is all a balance, and honestly, that, the local option sales and service tax, the majority of that, probably 2/3 of that at least, and you could probably argue all of it, it's just some of it was on technically collectors, but it's been within the heart of our neighborhoods of actually paving. So we've been dealing with local option sales and service tax. We have a lot of these streets we call, which our Public Works Department calls macadam streets. I call them chip and seal streets. So they basically were built with like a real thin layer of a asphalt type material on a pretty good granular base.
But it's the
of course
top
there's no
couple layers.
pavement, and so we've been going through and putting in an actual pavement with local option sales and service tax, and those are all residential streets. They're all,
I think if we're looking at getting a new road assessment, it would be nice to like have numbers specifically for residential versus like the main streets to like know where we're at with like residential.
I think that was,
I don't know if that's built and I haven't seen one before.
I think that was part of it. I can't,
Yeah, because we're
I
only
think
working
that
on
was
a
part
couple
of it.
major arterials at the same time.
Right.
Steve, two questions. Thanks for pulling out the lost dollars as what that has contributed. Do you attempt to put Prairie Meadows dollars in a separate, or identify those?
they're identified in the CIP, but we don't pull it out though, right? I mean, we've been putting that money into bridges and streets. I don't know if you have more.
So, and Nick Shaw can answer more specifically where all those numbers go, but 2 million go to bridges, and then if you look at the CIP, it's road reconstruction collector, and it's ST217, and that's where all the gaming money goes to, and we use those, that particular pot of money for certain roads.
Okay.
So, because on road use tax, you can only work within the right-of-way. With gaming money, you have a little bit more flexibility.
Dave, thank you. And Steve, is there a point like we're done making a push for the bridges and storm and sanitary sewer that we can shift more dollars toward street replacement? Is there like 10 years out or?
So bridges, we're getting more into where we want to be, which is maintaining bridges. So for example, the next one I see 5 years out, we would do a rehabilitation project on University Avenue Bridge. So I don't really see, while I think we can get away from hopefully some of the massive projects, like replacing our river bridges, there'll still will always be an ongoing bridge maintenance. In terms of sewer separation work, yes, that work is tapering off, but the stormwater work, I would not see that tapering off anytime soon. So, I don't know if I don't know that I see, in terms of I guess the question more reallocation of funds, so funds that were going to the bridges that could go elsewhere, or, I don't know.
I'll take a stab at that
Yeah.
too, that you have to separate the utility projects first. And that source of funding needs to stay within the sanitary sewer, within the stormwater. So we're not likely to see any of those funds transfer anywhere else. What you'd have is hopefully the potential of the stormwater utility actually seeing its rate come down, I'd say about 10 to 12 years from now. These projects need to be done, and some more of their debt, the enterprise fund debt, needs to be paid off. And so that's probably a good 10, 12 years out before we see relief on the utility side. On the bridge side, I would tell you that the huge impact and opportunity that we have as we complete our bridges is to go after federal money for more streets and not have to go after federal grant funds for our bridges. And so there will be some opportunity to kind of shift some of that opportunity.
Can you, I know that there was a story that we saved money on salt and what we didn't use. Will you show us how that's going to be used for street repair at some point in time? So I think
Sure.
that would be,
And it is. The
we
money
saved
stays.
2 million, okay, what streets were repaired with that 2 million? Or did we do any type of reconstruction?
Yep, that stays within the public works budget for streets, so we
Yeah, I
can
knew
ask for that.
But it would be helpful to, to be able to show or tell our constituents, yeah, we did save it and this is what it was used for.
Yeah, we can get a listing
Okay.
of that. And also schedule some time for a overall streets conversation for.
Yep.
It's been requested.
So I think the theme of this presentation, which I like our public to take away from, is, I'm proud of that the city has done what it said it would do. And a handful of years ago, we had residents, you all have had residents, requesting that we improve our infrastructure, we improve our streets, we improve our stormwater management. And I think this graph is kind of a nice summary to show that response, right? And this what you see on the board here is the city's capital improvement program, the awarded construction contracts, basically almost over the past decade or so. And so you can see the numbers down there, we're 20 million, and you can see I guess the graph I think speaks for itself. 35 contracts going up to 66 contracts, so essentially doubling. And that's, again, the investment our city has made in our streets and largely due to the big investment in streets and stormwater management, as well as bridges and parks. So,
Nice work.
yeah, thank you. And actually, what the graph doesn't show is 2021 to 2022 is obviously not done yet. And so we've already done in 9 months about 85 million in contracts, 46 contracts. There's another 16 million that are coming just this month. And so that'll definitely push us. So you'll see the line stay up there next year. So, and I think hopefully you've received this handout today. This is kind of the bid schedule. This is what's been bid this past fiscal year already. So these are already have construction contracts, and then here's what's coming up in white there, in the white. Whoops. So hope I didn't skip through that too much, but let me I guess pause for. Go back and pause just for a second, just so the folks that are watching online can kind of see this real quick.
Is this document, maybe this is a question for Kay, but is this document going to be attached to the, additional documents in the work session online?
We can do that, right? we can do that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The PowerPoint will be?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
Yep.
Or probably already is, yeah.
Quick question. You mentioned the WRA sewer work and connecting in that 17, 18. I didn't see that project on here, like our portion of that, the street and the one-way to two-way conversion. Is that still anticipated to be bid out or started by the end of this? I mean, my understanding is that we anticipated that starting at least later this fall.
Yeah.
Is that still the expectation, or do we see that being pushed out?
No, I apologize. We didn't put the WRA projects on there, so we didn't put that on there. I apologize for that.
But it's not their project. I mean, we're waiting to start, that whole street conversion at the edge of the Western Gateway by Central Campus. That's happening once they've done their work, right?
No, it would actually be the same contract, so that it would actually be let as a WRA contract.
Okay.
Because the sewer contractor would rip it all up and then put it back. I think they're kind of dealing with the phasing right now, so it is going to start this year, but I don't know exactly which segment would start.
They're having a little difficulty with the archaeological down near Principal Park. And so that, they're trying to get that phased out along MLK, and then they may jump up to the third phase just for traffic only, some issues, so.
So what does that mean in terms of timing? Is that?
I think the project is still anticipated to happen over the next 3 to 4 years, but in that time frame. But I don't know, they would start, I think they'll still start this year, but I don't know what piece, like is it up by?
I'm concerned specifically about the 17, 18 in the lane conversion, because we initially told people that would be starting now. Then we told people it would be this fall, completed next year. What I'm asking are we still on is it going to be done this fall, completed next year, or are you telling me that it's going to be not going to be pushed out?
I believe it is pushed out, but we'll need to get back to you on that one. I don't think that piece will happen this year, but I'll have to confirm with them on that.
Dave's got it.
Yeah, so.
Got something.
Yeah, what's that? Oh, you're looking it up? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll have to get back to you on that schedule then to see where they're at on that.
I mean, because that's the whole lane conversion from 15th to 18th is contingent on
that project.
on that work. So if that is getting delayed, I mean,
Yeah.
I need to be able to communicate to folks on that.
Absolutely, yep. No, we'll check with them and see where they're at with the phasing of that, so. Yep. Okay.
Is the Harriet Street solar field, is that out by MSC that we're talking, or by the, like out MSC in the animal control facility?
It would be right in the animal control facility, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely, yep. It'd be kind of catty corner across the street, I think, right
Right at 15th and Maury.
Yep, between Maury and Harriet, kind of in that block there, yep. East of East 15th, so,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, anybody have anything else? Steve, thank you and your support for the presentation, and thanks for not only having the slideshow, but making it available for people to review online. So thank you all. Unless anybody has anything else, this meeting's adjourned. We'll see you later. Do we have a 4 o'clock?
4 o'clock closed session.
All right, and that will be,
Right here.
okay. Everybody needs to be back here at 4 o'clock. We have closed session.